Today, we are replaying an episode that originally aired a few years ago. We learned this evening about the passing of Melanie Ham. Melanie was truly a bright light in the craft world. Her warm smile welcomed everyone to learn from her craft videos, whether it was crochet or sewing or quilting. She was also a wife and a mother. I was lucky enough to interview Melanie in February of 2018, and I wanted to replay that interview today as a way to celebrate her life. Listeners may note that the podcast has its former name and theme music when this episode aired. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this interview is a small way to honor Melanie Ham's legacy. Welcome to episode 114 of the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today, we are talking about YouTube with my guest, Melanie Ham. Melanie is a YouTuber and blogger who loves to create and share easy-to-follow sewing, quilting, and crochet video tutorials to empower your creativity. She discovered sewing shortly after graduating from college with an art degree, with an emphasis in art history from California State University of Northridge, when she found herself with more time on her hands after her husband joined the U.S. Army in 2007. Along the way, she picked up crochet because it was easy to travel with, and in the fall of 2010, made her first quilt. What started out as a way to be creative and stay busy turned into an obsession, and by 2011, she'd started a blog and a YouTube channel. She now has over 400,000 subscribers on YouTube with over 32 million views and has grown to include premium content on melaniesmakers.com, her website as well. After living in Alaska and Hawaii with the Army, she and her husband, Robert, her kids, their rescue puppy, and her trusty studio cat now reside back home in Los Angeles, where they are both self-employed creatives and enjoy spending time with their kids and extended family in Southern California's amazing weather. Melanie Ham, welcome.
Hi, Abby. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk with you. I've watched you on YouTube for a long time, so I feel like I know you. I know what your house looks like. I know that's what happens when we watch each other on YouTube. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit about your story and also a little bit about how you've made that platform work for you. So as I said in the intro, I know you were, sort of interested in art in college and studied art history, but you weren't really a crafter, it sounds like, until you graduated and were an adult, which is sort of unusual. I feel like many people who are in this industry, started out making quilts or knitting when they were 6 years old or something like that. But you learned as an adult, which is kind of encouraging for beginners who are just tackling, learning to craft, and maybe helps you relate to them a little bit better. So you took a class at Joann's in 2007?
Yeah. That was my first kind of introduction to sewing on my own. My mom sewed a little bit growing up, so I was sort of aware of it, and my grandmother sewed, and my great-grandmother, so I sort of knew that it was in our family, I guess. But I never actually did it. My mom never really taught me. She worked full time, so it was something she wasn't really able to do very often. And so I had some time on my hands, and I was so inspired by seeing Amy Butler fabrics and Heather Bailey fabrics online. And I thought, I would love to be able to make stuff with that. So I took a class the beginning sewing class at Joann Fabrics.
That's great. I've actually never met anybody who that was their introduction, the beginning sewing class at Joann's. So that's actually really good to know. Like there are people who take that class and then take off and make this their career.
Yeah, it was a great class. I highly recommend it. It was a great introduction for me. I think it gave me some of the skills that I needed to just get started, and I sort of just ran with it. That's the only actual formal sewing class I've taken. I've done some workshops and things since then, but it was great.
And do you feel like because you did learn as an adult, it does help you to sort of understand what an adult learner kind of needs?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. I remember feeling all of these frustrations that I can anticipate them in a way when I'm teaching or when I'm sharing a tutorial, and I sort of know and I remember what was frustrating to me. And some of those little details that sometimes are skipped over in a tutorial because, it's a fine detail and overall it may not matter so much, but it actually can really make a difference when you're frustrated and something's not working right. For example, I was free motion quilting a quilt, my first one, and I was just having a terrible time with my tension. And it turned out that my bobbin was defective. So, there's some of these things that I remember trying every single thing, and I can list through all of those things, and it turned out it was something really random and kind of weird. And so I can relate, and I really understand what it feels like to not feel like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And how did you actually learn how to crochet?
I took the beginner class at Joanne again.
Another one. Okay. So yeah. Okay. That's so awesome.
I did.
Yeah.
That one was a little trickier because I feel like it was only a 2-hour class. And I feel like crochet takes longer than that because at first your hands feel like Edward Scissorhands at first. You don't know where to put your fingers and the hook, and it's really odd feeling. So I didn't feel like I left that class really feeling very confident that I could make a scarf or anything. But I guess it got me started and interested enough. And I came home with my ball of yarn, and just that skill took me a lot more, I guess, will on my couch and to sort of figure it out.
Did you go to YouTube to find out, or were you going to like blog tutorials or books?
No, not really. There were some blogs that I was looking at, but I found it really difficult to translate the pictures into what I was doing, because crochet is a lot of motion to it. And I found that hard. And there were some YouTube tutorials at the time because this was 2009. So there were a few of them out there. But I ended up just sort of trying to figure it out on my own.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. So, I just think it's interesting to hear how you learn and then how that translates into how you teach, because essentially having a YouTube channel that's instructional videos is a form of teaching online. So before we dig into YouTube, though, I want to stop for a second and talk about your family, because I feel like making video is a little bit of like a family business for you, which is really interesting. So your husband, who we referenced earlier, was in the Army, and he is a filmmaker, and your sister-in-law is also a YouTuber. So let's just start with your husband for a second. Can you describe what it is that he does?
Sure. So in the Army, he made short form videos for the U.S. Army. So he was a combat camera and did lots of, stories about things that were happening, different missions they were doing. He was deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. That's why I learned how to crochet, because I was traveling all over the place that year. But he really did that for the Army, and he was already into video before the Army. So he sort of went in with that skill, and he was very successful doing that in the Army, and then decided to go to USC Film School. Thank you, GI Bill. And so he got out of active duty and went to USC Film School and graduated last May. And now he's out of the military, and he's working on a documentary right now. He's directing a documentary. So that's what he's doing full time now. And
we'll link to his YouTube channel so people can see. I just watched like the little clip at the beginning. That's kind of like the introduction to his YouTube channel. And it kind of has a lot of different reels, like kind of sewn together. So you can see what kind of, get a taste for what kind of movies he was making when he was in the Army. And it's really, I was like riveted. So I want people to be able to check that out and see, get a taste for that. And then, so your sister-in-law, is that his sister?
Yes.
Okay. So she also is into film, which is funny. They have like a film family.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. She's the one who encouraged me to start a channel. She and her husband came to visit us when we were living in Hawaii. And she saw I had sectioned off a spot in our living room, and it was my own little creative space. And I had all my sewing machine and all my crafts and all my fabric and a little hutch. And she was doing YouTube, and she was about to quit her job and do YouTube full time. And she was like, you should start a YouTube channel. And she was telling me some of her experience and how it had been going for her. And she said, you're already doing all of this anyways. So, put it on video and put it on YouTube. And she was the one who really encouraged me to do it.
And she makes kind of like lifestyle, I would say sort of like women's interests, like more generally videos, like organizing your home.
More beauty.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then transitioned to that as she had children and had a home to take care of. She sort of transitioned.
Okay, right. It's like domestic things. They're really nice videos as well. And so did you have any resistance? I mean, I'm not sure whether you had kind of on-air experience or drama, were in plays when you were a kid or anything like that. So I wasn't sure, if somebody said to me, oh, you've got all this crafty stuff, you should do a YouTube channel. I'd be like, yeah, no, I don't do YouTube channels. So were you like, yeah, that sounds great. I love being in front of the camera, or was there any feeling of resistance?
Oh, yeah, a lot of resistance. I sort of was like I thought it sounded cool because I thought in the back of my mind it could be something I could do and earn a little extra money, which I thought was kind of an interesting idea that I could do from home with my kids. I knew that in terms of like equipment, I knew I had everything I would need. It wasn't like I needed to go out and buy a camera or buy a computer or, we had the equipment that I would need. And my husband, he does video. So that part of it wasn't scary to me, but the in front of the camera stuff was a big, big, big hurdle for me. I'm, naturally kind of a reserved and shyer person, and really trying to find how to have my personality come out on camera was really difficult for me at the beginning. When I would do intros and outros for videos, like no one could be home, even my husband. I would make him go upstairs and like close the door because I was so embarrassed. And I just was like, I just did it anyways and hoped for the best. But every time I would hit publish and put that out on YouTube, I was like sweating, and it was a big thing for me to have to get over, for sure.
Yeah. And then watching yourself, a lot of people, even people who come onto this show, they'll say, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to listen to myself. I cringe when I hear my own voice and that kind of thing. So, right, this involves editing the film and like putting the intro together with like maybe some music and then putting in the tutorial and probably editing out some pieces and putting the outro in. So you have to sit there and watch yourself over and over again in order to do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember one video I was editing and I thought, man, can I please not say like every other word? You kind of start to critique the way that you say things, or the ums and the ahs and the likes and the, sort of those filler words that we put in. And, I remember being really annoyed with myself because I was trying to take some of them out to make the video flow a little bit better. So yeah, it's a kind of you learn a little bit about yourself, and there's definitely things you try to do to be on camera, and it's kind of a weird thing, but I think it has really helped me to come out of my shell in a little bit, in a way, I think. Yeah.
And was there something that really motivated you to keep going? Because that it sounds like that was actually a hurdle, sort of being on camera, and it's sort of different from your natural personality, which is more reserved. But so you had to overcome that. And then there's, editing and preparing, and, YouTube comments are not always the nicest. Some people are just really rude in YouTube comments periodically. And so there's definitely things about it that are hard. And I'm just wondering if there was, something that was successful that really motivated you to say, oh, I really do like doing this. And, that was awesome. And I want to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at first I started to put some content out, and I got some really good feedback at first. And one of the things that was motivating me also was that online community. I'd been blogging for a little bit. I had a little Etsy shop. And so I had a very small online presence. But, we lived in Alaska, and then we lived in Hawaii. And none of my friends really that I knew in Hawaii were quilters or crocheters, or, I didn't have any friends really that I could talk to about that kind of stuff. Actually, that's not true. I had one friend that I could talk to about sewing stuff, but I really wanted that community. And I ended up teaching a class at a local quilt shop in Hawaii. So I ended up trying to find that community a little bit. But with the husband in the military, when he's traveling a lot, it's kind of difficult to have consistent plans. So having an online community was really helpful for me. And I loved seeing pictures of what other people were doing. And so I kind of craved that. And I felt like online video and sort of putting myself out there in my own projects and maybe helping some other people who are beginners too. I felt like that was a good way to kind of create some community and like online friends that I can hang out with and share some of these things that we're all learning together.
Right. It's almost like you needed to be a person, like a persona, like a player in that, community, and that was the main motivator. So by making your own content, it's like you're a participant. You've put something out, people can react to it, and it's a way to really make friends all over the world. I definitely can relate to that for sure.
Yeah, and I really liked the process of making the project and filming it and then editing it. I didn't, sometimes now I find it a little bit tedious, but really I didn't mind it. And so I think that didn't stop me. That wasn't too much of a hurdle. I kind of liked the process. I sort of liked trying to figure out how I could better explain things or how I could word this better, what camera angle is really going to show what I'm trying to do the best. So I didn't mind that kind of thing. I know that actually making a video is really intimidating to a lot of people, and trying to figure all those pieces out. So that wasn't too bad for me personally. Okay. So that didn't stop me. It kind of helped me to continue also.
And all of those videos, the early ones included, are still on your channel. So if people want to do, go digging way back, they can kind of see where you got your beginnings. And I really appreciate it when people leave their, sort of rough starts up on their blog, if it's the first blog post, or their Instagram when they were first getting started, or in this case on YouTube, because it's really, I think, very helpful to see the person's progression, who now you might look at them and so admire, their how professional and how much they've achieved. But, you'd be able to see like this rough video that was, maybe poorly lit and only had, this one camera angle, and you made a bunch of mistakes or whatever, and they're still there. It's really helpful.
Yeah. I have not deleted one video, so they're all still there.
Okay. So that first one, what was the first one about? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think, yes, I do. It was crochet.
Okay.
It was like learning, how to chain and how to do your single crochet, I think, was the first one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And so what was your setup like at that time? And then tell us kind of what your setup is like now, as far as like equipment and lighting and sort of maybe even planning in advance of getting started.
Yeah. So then I didn't have any lights. I just used, thankfully in my house where my sewing room was, there were 2 windows kind of on, walls that were next to each other. So it kind of had light coming from 2 different directions, which was really helpful. So I would always film during nap time, because that was when it was quiet. And the first video, I wanted to film it so that people felt like they were sitting next to me while they were learning. Like it was a friend that came over and they were crocheting next to me. And as I kind of did more crochet, I realized, well, that's a nice idea, but you can't really see what I'm doing very well. I really need to be closer on my hands and on those stitches to really be able to tell what's happening. So I used, my first camera was a T1i Canon hand-me-down camera, and it had HD video, but it didn't have the flip screen. So when I would set myself up in front of the camera, if I was in the shot, I would have to put tape down and sit there and like mess with my focus. So I'd have to go like back and see if I was in focus. And if not, I'd have to try to focus like on my chair and then go back and sit down and then test it again and see if I was in focus. That was like a really annoying thing that I was very happy when I got a camera that had autofocus, which I now have, which is the Canon 70D. And that camera, my husband actually won it in a video contest. So he gave it to me, which was really nice.
Oh, nice.
And then my husband had a tripod, so I used that. I just used the mic in the camera and I edited on iMovie. So now I have a little bit nicer camera, I have a nicer tripod. I do have a ring light and several lights that I've just bought on Amazon. And I use a Sennheiser, a nice lapel mic now, and I edit on Premiere. So all of those things have sort of just slowly transitioned as I sort of got better at each one of the pieces. Cameras that you can get really close and really see good detail. But in the beginning, it was just sort of like, I'm going to teach you how I wish I would have learned when I was learning. And I think that resonated, and some of those early videos still get really good views. So, so I guess that's been the progression.
Right. And I think, those early videos that maybe aren't so, sleek, they still get really good views because the content is what people want the most when they're searching on YouTube. They want the answer to their question that they've searched for. And so that video answers their question, shows them exactly what they're looking for, even though it's not such, high production value, as far as like lighting or, music or all of that kind of thing. And so it's an interesting thing to think through when you are starting something that maybe you don't have to invest and all of those pieces of equipment that you just referenced. Maybe just start out with what you can get, easily or inexpensively, enough to make something usable, but then as time goes by, you realize, oh, this is what I need, and just slowly upgrade each part.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I didn't have a smartphone when I started, but I mean, phones now have better cameras than ever before. So you could easily start just doing that, and even the iMovie editor on your phone. There's so much technology that's happened that if someone really wanted to make video and really wanted to share their experiences, their creativity, you definitely don't have to invest a lot up front. And then it's best to sort of like see how you like it, and then slowly, as you kind of progress, just add on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what works for one YouTuber may not work for another one, because you have a specific way that you like to work and a specific kind of content that you need to present. And so it's hard to know whether you should believe somebody else's advice or whether it's going to really apply to your setup and your situation until you've sort of had enough experience to say, okay, here's my ideal. Then you go look for the product,
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. It stops you from wasting money, and also from feeling like in order to do this, I need to make a huge upfront financial commitment, which is just not true.
And I think that stops a lot of people, or maybe it's an excuse in a way to not sort of just get started. But yeah, there's definitely not, there shouldn't be too much of a hurdle in that regard.
Exactly. Okay. So in December of 2013, you sort of decided to I'm going to put quotes around going full time with making YouTube videos. In other words, sort of, I guess, put all your apples in that basket to say, this is my job. This is going to be for me. And you had 100,000 subscribers at that time. And I'm wondering what that shift really looked like. In other words, like, before you went full time and then afterward, what changed? Like, what changed in your behavior when it comes to your channel?
Sure. So before that, I definitely looked at it more as a hobby. So although I was trying to be consistent, I was trying to grow my channel. It's not like I just haphazardly came upon 100,000 subscribers, but I definitely, it was the last sort of thing. My kids, my husband, my family, that kind of stuff always came first. And then my hobby kind of came, although it was a very important part of my life. So I definitely prioritized time to do that. But I didn't really look at it as a source of income. I started to earn money before that, and that was just like, oh, sweet, that's gravy money, and I can buy supplies, or we can go out on a date night, or things like that. I didn't really look at it as like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is my job now, and I'm going to be looking at different ways to grow my business. I'm going to learn about business, something I did not know anything about, online marketing. So at that point in time, we were moving back to California for my husband to go to USC. And I partially needed to earn a little bit if I could. It wasn't like a super essential thing, but I did, that would be awesome if I could figure something out. So I decided, well, I'm already doing this. Let's do this full time. Let's really prioritize it as my job. So I would set aside a certain amount of hours per day. I started researching how to grow your online business, how to have an online business. I didn't even know what a call to action was or any of that. Like, I didn't have an email list. I didn't really look at it that way beforehand. So I was a little behind, so to speak, because I just didn't see it as a business. I saw it as a hobby before that. So I really sort of dove in to try to learn about not only the creative side of owning an online business, but the business side and sort of some of the other things that go along with it. And I really went full on to grow it as a business.
Mm-hmm. That's such a huge shift. And I remember I made a similar shift when my kids were younger than they are now and still needed childcare. And sometimes I would need to do some work while a babysitter, for example, was here at the house. And I made this mental shift to say that babysitter was here so that we could work. We, meaning my husband and myself, so that we could work. She was here, not so that I could have a break. Do you know what I mean? So that changed in my mind. That was a really big change. I'm going back to work, even though really I am, doing what I was doing last week, but I'm now doing it with a type of intention that's really different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's huge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And my kids were still little when I made that shift. So there was still a lot of I'm going to do my best in between, but I did put my son in preschool, and, so that I could help, with that a little bit, and sort of took people up on their offers. We were moving back to California, so we had a lot of grandparents now, which we had never had since we had had children. So it was amazing to have grandma and grandpa and, these people that love my kids to be, hanging out with them and watching them so that I could get some things done. And then I actually homeschooled my son for kindergarten because I wasn't sure what our situation was going to be with my husband being in school. And we started homeschooling first grade, and I was just like, I can't, homeschooling isn't my passion. It was sort of like an in between. I didn't want to put my son in school and then take him out and move him somewhere else. But we ended up deciding we were going to be here for a bit. And so I said, I got to put him in school because I can't do all of this and try to work. And things had been growing and I was earning more. And so that helped a lot once he went to school, and now my daughter's in school too. So I'm able to really sort of set aside the hours that they're at school, and I'm working during those times. So it's definitely a mindset shift for sure. And it was a big factor in being able to grow.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so for me, it means saying no to certain things. I don't volunteer for, the PTA. I don't do that stuff. I'll bake cookies, but I don't go to the school during the day and volunteer. I just can't do it. It's either that or I work. I can't do both things. So, so I say no to a certain number of things because I feel like these hours that I have during the day, those are my work hours. And just like showing up at a job, you can't just leave to go volunteer. You have to be at your job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's tricky sometimes because, work from home. I do have a flexible schedule, and I love that I have a flexible schedule, but, a lot of people don't really understand, I consider myself a working mom. I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I'm not and it's just sometimes hard to see that when you work from home. And when my kids are I do like to do lots of things with my kids. I volunteer in their classes when I can. But I do really have to focus and set aside those work hours to work because that's part of, earning for our family. And I love it. And it's part of what I want to do. So, that's sometimes tricky because I can do certain things during the day, but it's just, making those choices clear and letting people know kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I think it can even be more challenging too, because the work that we do when it comes to sewing and crochet and decorating, even that kind of thing, it is very domestic. And so it doesn't even seem like work even more. You know what I mean? It's like, not only are you working from home, but like you're making pillows for the couch. It's like, I know this doesn't look like work, but this is my job. Okay.
It is so true.
Yeah, it's confusing. I think it's confusing for including people in my own family sometimes. Yeah. It's like, this is mommy's job. I know it doesn't look like a job. Okay. So you had one envelope pillow video that I noticed had been watched over 1 million times, which is really remarkable. And it's a beginner project. It's like super beginner. It's an envelope pillow. So it's basically a front and like 2 back panels that overlap, and you stick the pillow form inside, done. And I just wondered what it is you think about that video, why that video is so popular.
I think it's doable for people. That's the video I send people to when they're learning how to sew. So when somebody messages me and they say, I just got a sewing machine, what do you recommend for my first project? And that's the video that I send them to. I feel like I need to do an updated video because it's older, but it's still really good. Like, I was like, well, I don't know if I should waste my time doing that because that video is still, very clear and it's helped a lot of people. And I still get photos and messages and people that tag me and stuff that are making that project. So I think at the time that chevron pattern was super in. So I think the thumbnail kind of grabbed some attention, and I think that it's a doable project. And even if you kind of flub it a little bit, like it's still going to turn out okay. So I think people are able to be successful with it. And that one has done really well. And I think it's helped a lot of people, which is even cooler. Yeah.
And the majority of people who are searching YouTube are beginners, right? They're searching for, and I think that can be hard to grasp when you're thinking about making a video. I had a consulting client not too long ago, and she's like, I really want to make a video about how to insert a zipper because I get questions about this all the time. And, she's like super good at sewing. So she's like, I know I can make a great video about how to insert a zipper, but I looked on YouTube and there's already like hundreds or thousands of videos about how to insert a zipper. So I don't think I can do it. And, it's like, well, yes, but your video can really, first of all, it's great for you and your brand, but also people still need that information. And I bet like how to insert a zipper is a really common YouTube sewing search term.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times it's validating in a way that there's already a lot of something out there, because that means that there's lots of people that are looking for it and there are a lot of people that are interested in that. So I don't know that that's necessarily something to be afraid of. There's certainly lots of crochet tutorials out there now, and there's lots of scarf videos and hat videos, and your take on it is, your take on it. And so you're going to find an audience that really relates to the way that you share it or you show it, or the types of fabrics that you use, or maybe you have a special way of doing something. And I think that eventually you sort of build a tribe that begins to trust you and begins to like your style or your aesthetic or your teaching style. And so, I think that even though there's lots of content out there, you begin to have people that gravitate toward you that maybe don't gravitate toward other people. And there's room, there's room for all of us out there. I really believe that. And so I love that you can really kind of connect and just share your expertise, and that it can help people online.
Right. So even seeing that there's lots and lots of envelope pillow tutorials out there is actually encouragement and rather than discouragement. regarding making your own envelope pillow tutorial. It just means that people really want it. And so you can make it. So that's a good way to look at it. And I know you've done some work with brands, both making like sponsored videos where they're paying you to use their product, for example, in a tutorial video, or their tool or whatever it might be, but also in creating videos that you then give to the brand, kind of like work for hire, where you make a video for them that they can then take and use on their own site or on their own YouTube channel or wherever it might be. So I just wondered if you want to talk a little bit about those deals, maybe how the first one came about and how you kind of approach doing sponsorships.
Yeah, sponsorships, they are tricky because you really have to believe in the product. And I feel like there's room for error on my part with some of those because I want my tribe to trust me, so I say no to a lot. And I'm really particular about what I take on because my word is everything. And I really, I'm really particular about that. So, I love working with certain brands, and there's a lot of creativity that can be had with if a brand says, oh, we'd love for you to use this yarn in a project, just like let us know what you want to do. Different brands sort of approach it differently. Sometimes they approach me and they reach out to me and then we can work something out. There have been times where I love a brand and I reach out with them and see if we can work something out. A lot of times it's just pretty organic, and I don't always try to go after those too much. While it is, the money is good, sometimes you have to say certain talking points or you have to do certain things, and there's a big, there's an editing process, and sometimes that can kind of kill the creative process for me a little bit. At the same time, I love being able to share and promote the products that I love and I'm using anyways. So, there's a part where you're really sharing and you're helping the company and the company's helping you and you're helping the people and everybody wins. So those are the kind of brand opportunities that I like the most.
Right. Because you really need to think about yourself in that role as like almost like a freelance member of their marketing team. You know what I mean? So you have to sort of see yourself that way and think about whether that is what you want to be doing with your channel, So yeah. And I'm wondering if have you ever taken on maybe even early in this process, a sponsorship that like as you were doing it or after it was finished, you were like, I'm never going to do something like that again. Like that was not fun.
There's things where I learned at the end. I was like, it was all right, but I'm not sure. I think in the next time I will change it and do this instead. Or, sometimes the brand is very particular about what they want. And, there have been a couple times where I've kind of started to go down the road. And if a brand is really particular about what they want, I need to probably back out because they want to change my copy or they want to do, kind of massage my stuff too much to fit their agenda, which I understand completely. But there are times where, I just have to make sure that I know where my boundaries are. And there have been a few times where as I was learning all of these things that I let that boundary go a little further than I was in the end, as looking back, like, maybe next time I would do that a little bit differently. And that is, one of the reasons why I started doing my premium courses and my paid courses and quilt-alongs and some of these other things that I do, because I didn't want to have to rely on all of that. I didn't want to rely on brand deals in order to pay my bills. So I wanted to be able to have a little bit more control and work with the brands that I love, but not feel like I had to take that deal because I can't pay my bills without it. So I didn't want to feel that way. So that kind of helps to sort of make sure that everything is staying authentic and that my audience can continue to trust me and that they can know that what I deliver is my best. Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And do you work with a agency or anything like that? Or are you just sort of these sponsorships that you are still, accepting? Do they just kind of come into your email inbox or you're seeking them out? Or, is there somebody like a middleman who you're working with to secure those?
I do have a YouTube agency, Kim Community. They help me with some things. It kind of depends. Sometimes they'll say, oh, well, depending on how they worked it out or how the brand is working it out, I'll take it and continue it on myself. Or sometimes if we don't really need Kin Community to be involved, because then they'll go over contracts and they'll help make sure that the deliverables are on time, and they'll help make sure that all of those things are in place. But sometimes it's not really needed. So then they'll just say, oh, no, you guys can just continue, on your own. This is a pretty straightforward deal and I can handle it myself. There's other ones that if my management company brings me the deal, that they have a lot more kind of things that they have to do for that. So then they take care of it. So it would be probably half and half that I just handle it. But there is somebody that I have if I'm concerned about a contract or I don't know or I have a question that I can talk to get some clarification or get some advice.
Okay. And that's somebody at King Community that you can bring that contract to, which is really helpful because anyone who's been doing this sort of work for any period of time knows you actually have to really read the contract and understand what it means. Because I think all of us have signed things that later we were like, wait, what? What? Yeah. I agree to what now? And that's certainly happened to me. I think it's probably happened to everyone. And so you get, wise and realize that you need to really understand it.
Yeah, there's a couple things that's like now to look for, like who owns the content in the end. There's a couple things, I'm going to own it still, right? Let's just make sure that that's clear, or things like that are like, no, these are the biggies that are really important. And these are the things that are, just sort of preference.
Right. And as your confidence grows too, you're not as afraid that if this deal falls through because you're insisting on certain terms in the contract, that's the end of everything. Like, life will go on. There'll be more opportunities. So you can.
Exactly. There have been times it's showing what it is, how I did it, what you get for it, what I made, here's what we did. And then people can ask me, well, does it have this? Does it have that? And I can answer them directly. So it makes it so that people really understand exactly what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And I wondered if you could just give us, I have two more questions. One of them is just to give us some general tips for YouTube success. So if someone is kind of wanting to dive into YouTube now, you're a YouTube veteran, you've been on there for a long time, had a lot of success. So maybe tell us what like a channel trailer is. And that was actually the word I was hunting for earlier when I was talking about your husband's YouTube channel and how you can kind of watch his channel trailer, which is the beginning little piece there. So tell us what that is, why it's important, and maybe a couple other like sort of basic YouTube tips that people should know about.
Yeah. So YouTube changes all the time. So there's different ways that, people say to optimize things, but at the base level, the bottom line is video that you can see and that you can hear. So make sure your camera isn't shaking. If you're using your phone, put it on a tripod so that it's still. Make sure you can hear you. So even if you're using the phone's microphone, make sure it's quiet. There's not like crazy noises happening in the background, so that you can be as clear as possible and talk so people can hear you and see what you're doing. So those are kind of the big things. Try to edit things down to make them very succinct. A lot of times shorter videos do well on YouTube in terms of like getting started. And then you can go a little bit longer because watch time is really important on YouTube. So the more watch time you have, the more things will rank. So then longer videos aren't necessarily a bad thing. Just make sure that you're kind of trying to keep people all the way through and they're not dropping off too early. That's something to sort of keep in mind. And to be consistent. That's something that's really difficult for a lot of people, but if you can at least create some sort of a schedule, or be at least, even if it's just one a week or one every 2 weeks, just so that there's constantly maybe something new that just came out or is about to come out. And that helps to sort of create a community that's expecting new content from you. Also, channel trailer is really good to introduce people to your channel and what you do. Mine's a couple of years old now. I have plans this year to make a new one, but it just kind of gets an introduction and it encourages people to subscribe to your channel. And once they subscribe, then they'll get maybe an email if they've opted in for that, an email when you have a new video that goes up, or they'll get a notification when you have a new video. So it helps to, doesn't necessarily mean that all those people are going to watch your videos, but there's a bigger chance that they will, so that then you can get engagement, you can get questions, comments, thumbs ups, shares, and all of that sort of engagement. That's really important to help your video rank and also to help kind of build a community on YouTube.
That's great. And I subscribe to lots of YouTube channels, and I really encourage people to do that because you'll enjoy YouTube as a user more if you subscribe to channels. So whenever I watch a video that maybe somebody linked to from Facebook, or, I read about on a blog and clicked over to watch and I like it, I will then subscribe to that maker's channel. And that way, when I go over to YouTube, you can just scroll through your subscriptions and the latest video made by all of the people you've subscribed to will show up. So that's very helpful to me. And, I like to link to a video in my newsletter each week. So I will just go over there and be like, well, what's new? And then I can see what Melanie's made because it pops right up. Yeah.
It makes it easy for people to come back and to not lose you amongst all of the other channels that are out there.
Yeah, I love it. And I also, my last question was, before we get to your recommendations, I heard an interview that you did somewhere else where you said a phrase that I absolutely love. So I wanted to see whether you would tell us a little bit about it. So you said your phrase was, have your yes be yes and your no be no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really believe in your word, and that when you say you're going to do something, you got to do it, and really do it, and give people everything that they have paid for, that they, whether that's your family or your business. And then when you say no to something, it's okay to say no. And it's a no. And it kind of helps to create these boundaries. And it's from a Bible verse. But it's something that I really feel like helps me to sort of, have integrity in my business and integrity with my family, and to, you don't have to say yes to everything. Please don't. Please do not say yes to everything, because you'll just drive yourself crazy. And it's okay to say no, and it's okay to focus and prioritize, and just give people everything that you possibly can when it is a yes, when they've invested in you, when you've invested in them, just to give them everything, to over deliver, and to really bring it home and just do the things that you say you're going to do.
That's great advice. Okay, here's your recommendation. So the first one was Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which it sounds like you listened to on audiobook.
Yes. I listened to this. I was painting my daughter's room this past week, and so I was listening to this book on audio while I was doing that. And especially the first half, I thought there were some really great nuggets in there about creativity and inspiration. And I thought it was really kind of fun to listen to and to sort of think through creativity and having, one of the things she says is a lot of times, quote unquote, tortured artists, people say that they are a genius. And in the old days, we used to refer to it as they would have a genius. And so sometimes even thinking about certain things your genius can kind of, it's not necessarily part of you, and you can separate yourself from it and just make something and not have so much pressure on yourself because people say you're a genius, with some of these amazing artists. And there are just some little nuggets that, that the way that she sees things about inspiration, I just thought it was really, it was fun to listen to. It was just it was a treat.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good one. And you also signed up, and I love this, for hula and Tahitian dance lessons, which you said is something new and scary.
Yes. Oh, so scary. We had a recital in December, and I was, quite nervous about standing up there in my coconut bra, with all my hula sisters. We're most of us are moms, and it's been really fun. My daughter was born in Hawaii, and so she really connects with Hawaiian culture, and she just loves everything Hawaiian. And so she wanted to take hula lessons, so I found a local place that had them, and so I signed her up, and the class right after hers is a lot of the moms that do it too. And they take classes, hula classes. And my daughter was begging me to do it. And I thought, okay, like I kind of don't want to, but it kind of looks fun and it would be an extra workout for the week. So I did it, and it turned out that I really liked it. It's like a family. Everyone's so friendly and nice, and I've been really enjoying doing it. And it's been fun to be creative in a different way. I feel like it sort of makes my brain sort of switch to something else that's still really fun and creative, and it's music and it's dance. So it's just been really fun. I think it's helped me personally and helped my business to like even just grow in another area of life.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really good. So, okay. And your last one were products by Clover. And I love their products too. They're crafty products.
Yeah, I love Clover. They've been really great to me. They send me stuff all the time, and they're just a really nice company to work with. And I love their products. That helps. And I reach out and I ask them, I say, I need some more pins. I want to do some giveaways. And they're always super, super generous with that kind of stuff. And they're, if anybody's ever asking me like, oh, I want to get some sewing supplies or whatever. And I say, well, if they have Clover, go with that. It's a good place. It's a good trusty brand. And there's lots of other great brands that sell similar things too, but it's sort of like a go-to. Like if they have it, I probably will reach for theirs.
Okay. That's a good one. Thank you so much. Well, Melanie, thank you for taking the time to be on the While She Naps podcast. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you've been listening to the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Visit my blog, whileshenaps.com, where you can sign up for my email newsletter to get the best in sewing, blogging, and small business delivered right to your inbox each week. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.